everyone, Southwest London Transport here. I haven't uploaded an SCR video in a while. Today, I'm going to predict what trains can be added to version 2.4 for all operators. Let's get this started. We're going to start with the trains for Stepford Connect. We're going to start with the Class 175. It'll work on all routes. Especially the 3-coach variant can do the semi-fast routes. Up next is the Class 376. This train would work well on all electrified Stepford Connect routes, especially the Willowfield and Leighton West routes. Up next is the Class 334. I know I wanted this train for Waterline or Metro originally, but after finding out what routes this train operates, I think it suits Stepford Connect better. I also understand a lot of SCR players will say the 334 is better for Waterline or Metro. And I understand why. Also, if it comes, it'll be the only Juniper train to be on SCR, the other train being the Class 458, which was sadly removed in version 2.3. Up next is the Class 317. It used to operate on Greater Anglia, Great Northern London Overground, and Stansted Express in real life, if it comes. It'll be one of the oldest trains in the game. I would drive this train on the Leighton City to Leighton West shuttle. Not to mention that the 317 can operate the semi-fast routes. Up next is the Class 172 with N gangways. This train can work well on all routes. I know other SCR players will say the 172 is better for Waterline than Stepford Connect, but the 172 suits Stepford Connect better in my opinion. Also, the 172/3 can operate on the semi-fast routes, just like the current diesel and electric trains in-game. Up next is the Class 379. It can operate on all electrified Stepford Connect routes as well as the semi-fast routes. This train might be identical, if not the same, as the 377 and 387, but the 387-377 and 379 can operate alongside each other on the same operator. Up next is the Class 755. I still believe this train is on the wrong operator. Why the hell is the 755 still on Airlink, let alone not being added to Stepford Connect yet? The 755 will stay on Airlink for sure, but it should also be added to Stepford Connect. Even though the 755 terminates at Stansted Airport in real life. Just like the 745, the 755 is more regional, which is why it suits Stepford Connect better in my opinion. They better add the 755 to Stepford Connect, or else the developers are gonna roll big time. Up next is the Class 769. This train is identical, if not the same, as the 319, but has a few differences. First off, the 319 is electric only, while the 769 is bi-mode. And second off, the 769 can operate on not only electric, but diesel power too. If the 769 gets added to Stepford Connect, it'll be the second bi-mode train to be on Stepford Connect, the other being the previously mentioned 755. Up next is the Class 197. It can operate on all routes. Plus, the 3-coach variant of the 197 will work well on the semi-fast routes. If it gets added, it'll be the third Civity train to be on Stepford Connect, the others being the 195 and 331. Up next is the Class 155. This train will work well on all routes, especially the Rayleigh Bay line. I would like the 155 to be added to Stepford Connect rather than Waterline. But I know others will for sure disagree with that, and I understand why. Up next is the Class 144. Even though I said the 144 would be better for Waterline, the 144 is way too identical, if not the same. The 144 would work well on all routes. If it comes to Stepford Connect, it'll be the only pacer on that operator. Up next is the Class 166. This train is on Waterline already. But because the 365 is on Stepford Connect, doesn't mean the 166 won't be added to Stepford Connect, even though it mostly operates services out of London Paddington. The 166 can also be found on routes from Bristol to Portsmouth, which is a regional route of course. Up next is the Class 67, or SCR players call it the meme train. Anyways, the Class 67 would work well on all routes. If the Class 67 gets added to Stepford Connect, it'll most likely have 4 Mark IV coaches with a driving van trailer, or DVT for short. I know the comments will be spammed with 6-7 everywhere, and that's just because of the meme. But let's move past that and move on to the next train on the list, which might be the final one. Remember when I said that the next train on this list will be the final one? No, it isn't. There's 2 instead of 1. What the hell am I talking about? Anyways, back to the video. Up next is the Class 68 with Mark 5A coaches. This train will work well alongside the Mark 3 coach version of the same train. I honestly won't be surprised if the Mark 3 coach variant gets replaced with the Mark 5A coach version. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And finally, we get to the Class 90 with Mark 3 coaches. The Class 90 will be the only electric locomotive if it gets added to Stepford Connect. Also, if it does get added, it'll most likely have 9 Mark 3 coaches with a driving van trailer. Or DVT for short. Not to mention that the Class 90 would be amazing for the semi-fast routes only. Another thing to point out. The Class 90 will be locked behind the longer trains game pass. Now that we're done with Stepford Connect, we're going to move on to trains for Waterline. Starting with the Class 142, it is a pacer that used to operate around England and Wales, even though the 142A and D143 belong in the same family. The front on the 142 compared to the 143 is different, so you would be able to tell the difference between the two, so who the hell cares about it? It can operate on all routes. Up next is the Class 153. This train would be hyped up for a lot of SCR players, me included. It is a one-coach train, so you might think the 153 is way too short for Waterline. Honestly, and no offense when I say this, but if you think the 153 is way too short, get out! The previously mentioned 155 would be better for Stepford Connect in my opinion. While the 153, on the other hand, suits Waterline better in my opinion. It can operate on all routes on this operator. Up next are the classes 318 and 320. These trains operate alongside each other on ScotRail. These trains would suit all electrified Waterline routes, especially the Stepford routes. Up next is the Class 150. This train will work well on all routes on this operator. The 3-coach variant will operate on all routes except the Morganstown shuttle, of course. Up next is the Class 231. I know I wanted this train for Metro originally, but I saw a comment on my explanation to why the Class 231 should be added to Metro Video, and I believe the 231 should be added to Waterline instead. Anyways, the description on that video has been updated. If you go and watch the video and check the description, you'll understand what I mean. Anyways, the 231 can operate on all routes on Waterline, apart from the Morganstown shuttle, of course. Up next is the Class 230. It'll work well on the Green Slate routes only. I personally would avoid driving the 232 Terminal 2 or Stepford though, because it has a maximum speed of 60 miles an hour. Up next is the Class 196. This train operates commuter services around Birmingham. If it gets added to Waterline, it'll be the second city train to be on Waterline. The other being the 195. The 2-coach variant can operate on all routes, while the 4-coach variant will work well on all routes, except the Morganstown shuttle, of course. Not to mention that the 4-coach variant of the 196 won't suit Morganstown docks and Whitney Green when it comes to fitting the entire train onto the platforms, of course. Now that we're done with Waterline, we're going to move on to trains for Airlink. Up first is the Class 317. This train used to terminate at Stansted Airport, as well as having first class and a maximum speed of 100 miles an hour. The 317 will be one of the oldest trains in the game, if not the oldest train on Airlink if it gets added, like I said before. Up next is the Class 350/4. This train used to terminate at Manchester Airport on Transpennine Express, but goes through Birmingham International on London North Western Railway. If the 350/4 gets added, it'll be the third Desiro train to be on Airlink. The others being the 360 and 185. Not to mention that the 350/4 will be the fastest Desiro train to be on Airlink at 110 miles an hour. Up next is the Class 68 with Mark 5A coaches. This train used to terminate at Manchester Airport on Transpennine Express. If the 68 with Mark 5A coaches gets added, it'll be the first and only locomotive to be on Airlink. And finally, we get to the Class 379. THE 379 used to terminate at Stansted Airport on Stansted Express. Yes, it might be identical, if not the same, as the 387, but just because the 387 is on Airlink doesn't mean the 379 won't be added to Airlink either. We're going to move on to trains for Stepford Express. Starting with the Class 810, this train is a bi-mode train and can operate on all routes. Yes, it might be identical, if not the same, as the classes 800 and 801, but the front, sides, and headlights are different, so who gives a damn? Also, this train has first class and a maximum speed of 125 miles an hour. And finally we get to the class 222. The 222 might look like the classes 220 and 221, but the front is very different, so who gives a damn? Also, the 222 has 5, 6, and 7 coach variants. The 222 can operate on all routes. We're going to move on to the final operator, Metro. Starting with the Class 315, this train can operate on all electrified Metro routes, especially the routes terminating at Stepford Central, Willowfield, and Stepford UFC. If the 315 gets added, it'll be the oldest train to be on Metro. Up next is the Class 378. THE 378 can operate on all electrified Metro routes. This train is 5 coaches long. However, it used to have 3 and 4 coach variants. So there were a lot of SCR players stating the 3 and 4 coach variants of the 378 would be great for Waterline, while the 5 coach variant would be better for Metro. I stick with that. Also, the 378 can operate on all electrified Waterline routes too. Note that it'll be the 3 and 4 coach variants only. And we move on to the final train in the video, let alone for Metro, the Class 710. This train has 4 and 5 coach variants. If the 710 gets added to Metro, it'll be the first Aventra train to be on Metro. It can operate on all electrified Metro routes. Now, I'm going to move on to the conclusion. And that is what trains I predicted. That should be added to SCR for all operators. If there are more trains I missed out on that you think should be on the list, please let me know in the comments. There's going to be SCR players out there that will agree or disagree with the trains mentioned for all operators. And it's perfectly fine. Also, there's going to be SCR players out there that'll say this video is a banter and 6-7 simulator. No offense, but let's not start this garbage and leave it from last year. Anyways, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'll see you guys later.